Good evening and welcome everyone to the Saco City Council meeting for December 2nd, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. I would like to make recognition of all members present this evening with the exception of Councillor Archer. Would you please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. That now takes us to item number 4 this evening, and that is committee correspondence to council. Any council members wishing to speak? Okay, not seeing anyone. There is no general this evening. Item number 6 is public comment. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address council.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelly Archer, 185 Bradley Street, and congratulations to the incoming Ward 1 councillor. I look forward to your term once you are sworn in, and congratulations again to Councillor Gunn and also Councillor Hewitt. I look forward to this new administration for this year, and I'm hoping that a lot is accomplished as we move forward. As far as what is on the agenda, because this is an inauguration, we want to keep it a party and upbeat and whatnot. I just want, because it is on the agenda, I do want to point out that I am requesting of this council to table the action item F, adoption of rules and order of business. I found a few errors. That was housekeeping. I found that there was, as it was revised, there's a missing documentation of March of 2024 that should be in your packet for your review. And also, I really truly want you for this year to please continue to ask qualifying questions, request certain supplemental documents, and to table any items that is not in a full packet disclosure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kelly. Anyone else wishing to address council at this time? Okay, not seeing anyone. Moves us on to item 7 tonight, and that is the consent items. There are 2 items on. Item A is to confirm the mayor's appointments to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee of Ethan Merrifield and Kenneth Barbalas. And item B is to confirm the mayor's appointment to the Saco River Corridor Commission of Amy Safford. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Councillor Hatch, second by Councillor Johnston. Any discussion on the consent items? Okay, not seeing any. Roll call vote. Councillor Parks?
Yes.
Councillor Gunn?
Yes.
Councillor Berman?
Yes.
Councillor Hatch?
Yes.
Councillor Hewitt?
Yes.
And Councillor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Okay, that now takes us to item 8, and that is action items this evening. And this is for our inauguration of our newly elected and re-elected City Council and school board members. I would like to congratulate all new members as well as the returning councilors and school board. It's an exciting time. It's a great group. I'm excited to work with both sets. And so with that, I would like to invite City Clerk Hughes to the front. And would City Councilors Joe Gunn, Tricia Hewitt, and newly elected Doug Edwards please step forward.
Have you all raised your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution and will obey the laws of the United States and the state of Maine, and that you will in all respects observe the provisions of the Charter and ordinances of the City of Saco, and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of City Councilor for your respective ward? Congratulations.
Congratulations, Doug. You may now take your seat. Thank you and congratulations. Okay, next we would like to bring up the school board members. And we have two new elected school board members, and that is Carolyn Warnoff, who actually was an appointment back in September, I think it was. So she's new but not new. April Kidder, who is new, welcome, congratulations. And returning members, school board member Mike Richards and Beth Johnston. Please step forward. I'm sorry. Why do I always say that? Jeff, as long as I've known you, I will continue to do that. I'm sorry.
Have you all raised your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution and will obey the laws of the United States and the state of Maine, and that you'll in all respects observe the provisions of the charter and ordinances of the city of Saco, and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of school board for your respective ward? Congratulations.
Okay, and with that, we will take a 5-minute recess while we set up for the joint meeting with the school board members. And would the newly elected officials please meet City Clerk Hughes out in the back? And we will return in 5 minutes. Thank you for your patience, everyone, and welcome back at 6:42.
Yes, you're over between Kevin and. Oh, okay. I was gonna put. Well, you're technically. All right. Forget Kevin. Oh, just sit. Fine then. Okay, I tried.
Okay, moving on to item C this evening of our action items. We are joined with the school department this evening and the school board. And Superintendent Ray, do you have any quick updates?
Sure, I'll just give a couple of quick updates before we get into some of our trainings. At your desk tonight, a couple of weeks ago, we put on a joint session with some of the homeless shelters and York County Community Action, and part of the agenda was on some of the items that schools have concerns, worries, needs, looking into the future. And so I just gave you the handout that we have so you guys can read up on that. It was a great event to bring people together from all over York County to look at some of the challenges, some of the successes, some of the areas that we jointly need to be focused on in the next legislative session. We're very lucky here that we have one of your members who will be representing us in Augusta, who we've had some conversations with about some of the needs that our families have in the community. Certainly throughout the last few weeks, we continue to see needs popping up in our community. Our staff, in conjunction with Biddeford School staff, we were able to hand out over 100 different turkey boxes throughout the community a couple of weekends ago, just to make sure that families had the support that they needed over the holidays. On the school side, we're getting ready to jump into the budget season, just like you guys are, and those are things that are on our plate as we move forward. But there's always this thing called school construction that we're doing. And just to give you a kind of a quick update, and certainly have Meg jump in if we miss anything, we've been really thinking about the themes within our building and bringing a group of people together to think about what are the kind of natural elements in our community that may want to be representative in the design within our building. That's a committee that's going on right now. We're able to involve our students at C.K. Burns School, grades 3 through 5, to get their input on playgrounds and the design of playgrounds and what are the items that they would want to see. So we continue to meet every single week. We're starting to think about schedules. I know it's 4 years out or 3.5 years out, but thinking about what that schedule will look like so that we're planning our designs around bus dismissal and organization and lunchroom. And one of the things that you guys may have seen is that we the school committee had appointed the principals for the new building so that we can have plenty of runway and lead-up time to think about all of the important things such as staffing, space, needs, organizations, transitions, and we want to make sure that people have a full understanding, not only staff, but the public, of what it will take like, because there may be some positions now that are current positions, but as we consolidate in, may not look exactly the same, because you may have more of one thing, but when you get there, you may need more of something else. So those are some things that we're trying to plan so that, that we go into this with everybody having plenty of foresight of what's going on. We're also continuing to measure and watch what will happen with the state budget and what will happen with our student population as that increases, decreases, what changes in the budgets you'll have may impact what is happening at the hotel. And so I have a feeling it's going to be a very, very busy legislative session for us on the state level. So I know we have some other items here tonight, and I won't talk too long, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you. Any questions for Superintendent Ray? Councilor Hatch?
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. Just an observation. I think that I'm listening to you talk about the transitioning of staff and changing roles. I think it's important that we all look at that as an opportunity, a positive opportunity, and in some cases even enriching for some of your staff members. So I'm looking forward to that. Having two school teachers as daughters, I hear the challenges in the classroom. I've got a kindergarten teacher and a first grade teacher in different school districts, and it's a big challenge. And so hopefully the new school will give us opportunities to address those more productively and provide positive opportunities for everybody. So I look forward to that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. With that, we'd like to invite City Solicitor Murphy up, and we will start the ethics and the FOA training.
Good evening, Mayor. Nice to see you. Councilors, school board members, including the newly elected, congratulations. You are now the collective wisdom of the community. I'm sure you'll exercise those responsibilities with care. Saco's been blessed through the years. I'm sure it will continue to be that way going forward in the future with all of you. However, tonight you do have to pay some penance, and that is to listen to a lawyer for probably 30 minutes, and I'll apologize in advance for that. Some of you have gone through this, let's call it a pony show. For you, special apologies. But I'm going to try to mix it up a bit from years past so that at least it maybe holds your interest a few minutes longer. I'm going to spend the bulk of the time tonight talking about the city's own ethics code, which is a relatively new document for us. It didn't exist. Several years back, we adopted it. I think it was a wise thing to do, and so I'd like to discuss a little of that with you. But I see that FOA is on the agenda, so I'm going to talk very briefly about the FOA. You're all familiar with it, I'm sure. But let me just hit you with some of the high points regarding Maine's Freedom of Access Act. The act really addresses two types of matters. It talks about meetings and documents. The state legislature wants our meetings open. They want the public to be here. They want the public to have opportunity to see how our government functions and works, how and when it reaches decisions. And this is prudent. It also wants the citizens to have access to the government documents you all are going to rely on and look at when you start to make your decisions. Decisions about how the school's being designed, for instance. Already, the superintendent is inviting you to participate in that process. Now, it's voluntary, and it's done with the best of intentions. But even if the superintendent wasn't doing that, even if the school board wasn't proactive, Maine law would have required it anyway. But my guess is the school board's going to go beyond what's required and try to bring more people into that process. So already the mere existence of the FOA is promoting us to do more things to inform our public. So it doesn't have to be the wagging finger. It encourages us to be better at good governance. So the FOA is a wise policy, and it helps us. Now, keep in mind, government, when we talk about government documents, they're not just the pieces of paper. They can actually be your personal correspondences among each other that you do on email. Those also, although they're not physical pieces of paper, are government records. And you have to understand and be aware that those also can potentially be part of a public record and can be requested and reviewed by members of the public. So that cautions us to always be careful what we do and say in everything we write. And there was the rule or the old phrase that people would say, unless you want to see it on the front page of the Courier, don't say it. Because it may well eventually make its way there because of the FOA. And as counsel for the city, and other lawyers will tell you this as well, the way the courts look at the FOA is with one consistent rule in mind. Almost all the decisions of the court, 85 to 90% of them, fall in one way. The court will say, when we interpret the Maine FOA, we are going to err on the side of caution, err on the side of disclosure, and we are going to tightly control and limit those parts of the statute which say something is not public. So the parts of the statute which allow for the withholding of public records will be viewed cautiously, very strictly, very tightly. And the court will most often err on disclosure, because that's what the legislature has told them to do. There will be certainly well-known exceptions. You can go into executive session, for instance, when you're purchasing land, right? So we bought a very large parcel of land to build a new school. Well, you can't negotiate effectively if all that's done in public. So that's a common exemption to go in on negotiations. Advice with your attorneys, commonly done, it's allowed. So there are exceptions that are allowed. Juvenile records, police records are often confidential and not subject to FOA. But in large part, as you sit here tonight and as you go forward every night hereafter, keep that in mind, that in large part, your records are going to be open. Now, your meetings as well. It isn't enough that you have a public meeting. You have to let people know where the meeting is. You have to give them advance notice. All of this is designed to give the citizens participation in what is actually their government. You're the caretakers, and you're, as I say, the collective wisdom of the community, but they're still going to monitor you, right? And that's their right, and it's their privilege. And that assures all of us that things continue to operate smoothly and hopefully efficiently, because the public knows when you're meeting. They can come. You even have public, council has public comment here on the agenda, which isn't required. You do it because it's a wise thing. And in fact, someone spoke tonight and took advantage of that opportunity. But if we didn't let the public know when your meetings were happening, and we didn't let the public know where the meeting was happening, so for instance, if tonight's meeting was magically transported to the fire department up at their conference room and no one knew, well, that wouldn't be much of an open meeting. So sometimes it's just as simple as letting people know where it is and when it's going to be, so that they can enjoy the benefits that you're providing to them to participate as well. So it's a sound policy. You're well familiar with it. You know its purposes. It's been around a long time. So I really don't think it's something that we need to dwell a whole lot on tonight, but I'm sure if you have questions, whether it's council or school board, you have resources at your fingertips. So for school board, you can talk to the superintendent. He'll probably have a ready answer. And if he doesn't, the school department has attorneys. Same with the council. You can talk to the city administrator, he's your resource, or the mayor, and if there's questions that they can't answer, they'll come to me. And so we want to get it right. So if you have some doubts, bring them up. There may be a type of record you have a question about, or who knows. So we're here, you have resources. Best that we get them solved in advance rather than having, because citizens can file complaints against the city. If we fail in our duties with FOA, complaints can be filed against the city, so we certainly don't want that. So you have resources at your fingertips with regard to the FOA. Don't hesitate to take advantage of them. So that's a real hasty run through the FOA. Maybe another time I'll do more detail. Some of you heard the detail. Let me switch then to the Code of Ethics, which I think is admirable that SACO has adopted this policy. And I'm going to work through it a little bit more slowly than I might otherwise do. Any presentation is improved by people asking questions, so, and that certainly goes for me. So please feel free to shoot up a hand if you have a question or a matter of particular interest. So the code is on the website. It's there for all of us. And it applies, interestingly, to all elected and appointed officials. And parts of it apply to our board members, to even to volunteers, and certainly applies to employees. And the purpose is well stated right at the beginning. And so you can almost tell this wasn't drafted by a lawyer. It says, the city is committed to the highest ethical standards and practices. There it is right there in just a few words. This city, SACO, is committed to the highest ethical standards and practices. Well, bully for us, that's a great thing. And it's something we should put in sentence 1, right out at the front. That's our goal. That's the purpose of this document. So as we interpret this, as we apply it, it's unambiguous what we're attempting to accomplish. And it's a good and worthy goal. The city even adds the rationale for why we're doing this. And oftentimes it's really important to understand, do we just want good citizens? Well, of course we do. But there's more to it than that. And what the drafters say is, when the city acts in an ethical manner and addresses issues proactively and uses best business practices, it establishes a positive reputation and protects the interests of our citizens. So now you see the drafters' purpose. They want to protect the citizens and preserve the reputation of our community. So now that's the rationale. We know the goal and we know why. We want a better community. Okay, that makes sense. And it says this policy will serve as a guide to behavior. So it's for us to benefit from us. It's a teaching tool. It's as we go forward in our careers as legislators and school board members, here's a guide for us. Section 2, our commitment to ethics and conduct. This section makes clear that it does not just apply to all of you here tonight. The City of Saco employees, volunteers, elected and appointed officials, those 4 groups, will treat everyone fairly and with mutual respect. That's not much to argue with there. Treating people fairly and with mutual respect. We shouldn't even need to write that down, right? It should be part of just who we are as people. But nonetheless, we say it because it matters. We say it because it's important. But why I highlighted that sentence was the drafter is making clear that it applies not just to these 2 groups. You're in there, you're elected officials. But it also applies to our employees, our volunteers, and appointed officials. So if you're, for instance, if you're on the planning board, or you're on the zoning board of review, if you're the city attorney, anybody who's appointed has these same obligations. It's not just for all of you. This is essentially, we're saying that these principles are citywide. That's how important they are to us. And we expect that everybody are going to be governed by these rules with the intention of treating people fairly and with mutual respect. The code then sets out a series of standards or activities that are going to be required. It says employees and volunteers will make effort and use intelligence in determining and maintaining their ethics. Employees, volunteers, and officials must at all times disclose potential conflicts of interest. So you're going to put in effort. You're going to disclose conflicts. We will work to increase citizen, public, and vendor satisfaction by providing quality services and timely response to inquiry. We're going to be good government officials. The code asks us to be good at what we do, to work hard at it. And then interestingly, this section of the code, section 2, ends with something that I think is unique. It's a provision requiring self-reflection. This is interesting. It's not just a standard. It isn't just saying, hey, government official, do X, Y, and Z. The standard is also asking you on your day-to-day life, as you undertake your governmental activities, ask yourself certain questions. Is this decision legal? Is it fair? Does it comply with appropriate city standards? Does the decision reflect negatively on the city of Saco? There's a series of essentially self-reflection that the code asks of us. You know, I always say when I do this each time, unethical behavior flags itself, right? It always does. You'll feel the hairs on the back of your neck go up. You know when you're stepping on the line. You know, because your body will tell you. Your heart rate will go up. Your pulse increases. And we can sense, we shouldn't do this, or we can. So typically they flag themselves. But sometimes, you know, we have an angel on one side and a devil on the other, or you're just not sure. The code asks us to self-investigate before we make decisions, to be certain. That's what it's asking us. It's asking us to be certain we're doing the right thing. And then it sets a standard. Section 2 ends with a standard and a warning. It says, the city of Saco will not tolerate wrongdoing or impropriety at any time. Okay, I think that's a wise thing. It's setting a standard, and it gives us a warning. It then says the city will take appropriate measures if an ethical code is broken. So we set standards, expectations of people, and we say, okay, don't push it. We don't want to have to investigate or hold you to a standard. We want you to voluntarily do these things. And that's, again, appropriate. We're adults. We're not teens. You know, that's why there are juvenile laws. Things don't count against us when we're 14, 15, 16. That's why there are juvenile laws. But they do when we become adults, because it's expected that we understand rules of behavior. And that comes in with governance as well. Section 3 of the code actually seems to be more limited to city officials and not to the employees. And it's more directed to them. So all of you, essentially it repeats much of the same standards, but Section 3 will say the purpose of this is also to establish ethical standards for the conduct of all city business by elected and appointed officials. It is expected the following. City officials will be fair, impartial, and responsive. You have lots of people that come before you. They need things like a liquor permit, or I don't know offhand at the schools, but I'm sure citizens come with issues. Sometimes they're just concerned. The code asks you to listen to them, to be fair, and to be impartial. Don't make up your minds. People have an ability to persuade, and so you want to be able to be open and to listen to that. It says decisions and policy should be made within the proper channels of government, and they will be in compliance with state, federal, and local laws. The code reminds us we cannot use our office for personal gain. And that is, if that's found out, you're going to be subject, you could potentially be subject to criminal investigation, depending on what the gain is and how it happens. So that's a red line you don't want to go near. City officials will maintain standards of conduct that inspire confidence and reinforce the integrity of city government. You know, a long time ago, we had a code enforcement officer who was bribed. He was offered, I think it was close to $5,000 to approve a project. He immediately contacted me, and we contacted the FBI. And eventually, the code enforcement officer wore a wire to a meeting with the person who was engaged in this criminal conduct. Voluntarily came, because that's the kind of person he was. And that has always been the way here in Saco with our public officials. They're good people. They want to do the right thing. The fellow could have said nothing. No one would have ever known. But that's not who works here. I thought it was an act of some courage to agree to work with the FBI to collect further information to help prosecute this. And the man was subsequently prosecuted. So, believe it or not, even in Little Saco, Maine, these things that you see on TV do happen. So don't be part of that. It's not what we've been about. We've been blessed with the public officials we've had. But again, it does and has happened. So I bring that to your attention. City officials shall perform their duties in accordance with the rules and order of business of their bodies. So each of you, I'm sure the school board has a set of rules of procedure on your meetings. You have to follow them. Same with city council. So that's an obligation. There are rules that you follow because that's what you've adopted. And that's expected of you. It's in the code of ethics that you're going to continue to follow the rules of the body. It's how you get things done efficiently. It's not just there to be a a wagging finger, it's because there's an important purpose behind it. Good stewardship of the public interest shall be the primary concern of city officials. You are the stewards of city assets, city resources, the reputation of the community. Every day when you're acting in your public capacity, people are going to watch you. They're going to see what you do, how you speak, how you act, how you behave, how you treat them. They're your customers. If we were a business, the citizens that come to us are customers, and they want to be treated like good customers. I mean, the example is LL Bean, the gold standard. Mr. Murphy, those shoes aren't quite right. Bring them back. We'll replace them. They don't question it. That's just who they are. They want you to be a happy customer. And that's been the tradition of Beans for years. Well, that's what you have an obligation to be. These people coming in, they're our customers. And they have expectations of us that they'll be heard and listened to, treated kindly. You may not always make the decision they want, but if they're heard and at least listened to and treated fairly, they'll be okay with it, even if you make a decision that isn't the one they want, because have been accorded respect, and that's what your citizens are going to ask you for. It's stewardship. No one else has, well, the city administrator is personally responsible for an awful lot, right? That's the nature of the job. And then he or she has department heads. But you also are stewards of a large part of the community, the resources of the community, the reputation of the community. So care for it, mind for it, be mindful of it, and realize that the reputation of the community is precious and we want it to remain. You have duties in terms of how you conduct your hearings. The ethics code requires that you do them, that you have your hearings and meetings with certain standards in mind. They're set out in the code. Welcome. One of them is the easiest. Welcome speakers and treat them with respect. And I saw the mayor doing that tonight. It's second nature for you. Here's your 3 minutes. Welcome to the podium. And that's all. It's as simple as that. That's all that's needed. Be fair and equitable in allocating your available time for meetings so that everyone gets a fair shot at being heard. Believe me, the person who got 1 minute at the end when everyone else got 5 or 10 is going to be bitter, because you're saying they're not as important as the 3 or 4 people that preceded me. So make sure you treat all the speakers fairly. Practice active listening. I'm a lawyer, I'm not good at that, so active talking, yes. Active listening, no. But I'm sure all of you know what it means. Practice active listening. I think that means to be attentive, seriously, not giving the person lip service, but actually listening. And ask clarifying questions if you don't understand something. Avoid argument and debate with the public or city staff when it's unnecessary. It asks us to actively intervene if someone is being rude to a guest, a member of the public, or a speaker. And I think that's important. We say, this is like being with family. We're not going to tolerate rude behavior. We're not going to tolerate people attacking one another. That's not what we're about. We're going to be positive and uplifting. And then lastly, it requires that we follow our standard parliamentary procedures. Okay, perfectly understandable. Section 4 talks about conflicts of interest, an interesting area. And it's very clear what it says. City officials shall not deliberate, act upon, approve, disapprove, or recommend any matter or decision in which they hold a material personal interest. Charter talks about a 10% rule. State law talks about a 10% rule. I say it every time I come. Don't use the 10% rule as a test. Oh, I only had an 8% interest. That's not going to cut it with the public. If you have any material interest in a matter, just disclose it and abstain. It's inoculation. I call it the inoculation. Once you've done that, once the public's aware of what your interest in a matter is, The matter will go on, and your involvement cannot be held against the city because you disclosed it and you abstained. If you have a personal interest, the public doesn't want you involved in that matter. They're just going to worry. They're going to think you voted for something because it was personal to you, personal to your family. So it's not a risk worth taking. Don't do it. And even if it's a minor personal benefit, if it's for a minor relative, don't do it. The code reminds us it can be a city official or a relative of the official. You know, I remember I think it was my first year working for Mayor Johnson had just appointed me. And he was concerned that one of his city council members' wife was a teacher at Thornton Academy. No, might have been one of the schools. But that counselor was essentially going to be voting on the school board contract, which was in effect a de facto vote on his wife's raise. And the mayor wanted me to say that was a conflict of interest. I'd only been on the job about a year. A little bit of pressure. And any of you who know Mark know he can be a fairly persuasive fellow when he wants to be. And it came down to the decision was, well, no, that's not a conflict of interest. Because in that case, the counselor's vote was so attenuated from the action. He wasn't voting on that raise. He was voting on the overall global budget, of which 1/1000th was that particular teacher's raise. So there can be circumstances where a vote that might affect a family member, you can do it, because it's so far removed. He wasn't voting on that employee's contract per se. All of you are going to vote on a school board budget eventually. And if you have a family member that's working in the schools, that doesn't make you conflicted such that you have to bow out. So those issues come up, and they're interesting. You don't want to do anything if you have a business partner that has business before the city. That's going to be an easy one. That's going to cause problems. Or a relative that serves as a director or a trustee or owner of a business that's here on a matter involving city money. Or any other purpose, or any other business or person with whom the official is in business for a future contract. And this is important. There's actually a state law that says if you vote on a contract in which you had some tie, that contract can be rendered voidable, which could be extremely detrimental to the city. It could cause the unwinding of an important contract. So there are significant reasons never to go up to that line. The standards related to city officials also relate to hiring and employment. City officials, it says, shall not participate in the deliberation, approval, or disapproval of a recommendation of hiring, promoting, disciplining, or terminating any personnel in the city. That's the superintendent's obligations. That's the city administrator's responsibilities. Don't intrude into that. It's not going to be of any benefit to the person you think you're helping because it violates our standards. So just don't do it. That section, again, requires that everyone who's an elected or appointed official disclose, again, conflicts of interest and abstain from voting. And again, that's the inoculation. That's the shot. Do that, and the board is good to go. The standard also requires that we not get involved in political activity. How am I doing on time, Mayor? I'm going to wrap it up here soon. How am I doing?
7:15.
When did I start?
Just about quarter of. Yeah, we came back at
Okay.
6:42.
So avoid political activity. Don't use your office to influence or affect political actions. That's going to potentially cause problems. And the code is clear that you should not accept gifts of value. You have your salary. You are allowed, I assume, to have expenses reimbursed. But if someone attempts to give you a gift of value, it's going to look like they're trying to influence you. So it's almost always a red flag. there's a section, the last section is regarding conduct during meetings. And this isn't really so much ethics for all of you, but just these seem to be more practice pointers for your meetings. Try to avoid public disruptions. So yes, the public has a right to come and participate in your meetings, but they're your meetings. Ultimately, they're your meetings, not the public's. You have to control them for the benefit of all the citizens. So if a particular citizen is being disruptive, you can remove them. You can ask if they won't leave or change their behavior, you can actually eventually have the police come and have them removed. I can't recall us ever having to do that. Hopefully we won't. But again, you're protecting all the other citizens so that government can continue in the face of someone if they're being disruptive. Inappropriate staff behavior, again, and this would be the superintendent or the administrator expects that their personnel who report to them will accord you the respect and deference your offices deserve, always with care and with a professional demeanor and attitude. So that's what you can expect from them, and you have every right to expect it. Appointed officials, to the extent they, I'll use the word misbehave, the Section 5 presents a process in which concerns, so if you have, I'll pick on the planning board. If there's a planning board member who is acting untoward, engaged in something that may be of concern, those concerns can be brought to the mayor, and there's a process in the Code of Ethics that allows for an investigation to occur by the mayor, and if necessary, for discipline to happen. Ultimately, can also, if, I've known Councilor Hatch the longest, let me pick on him. If he's doing something sketchy, you may not know the background. Now, this is highly unlikely, but, well, I'm worried. Councilor Johnston, you could say to the mayor, I'm not sure, I think Councilor Hatch is a pretty good guy, but I saw this or I heard this, I just want to flag you. So there is a process for that, and then it can be investigated if need be, but highly unlikely to have occurred with Councilor Hatch, or likely any of you. Again, as I've noted, we've been blessed with good public officials. So there's a lot here. I commend you to read it. It's on the website. I would say, 5-10 years ago, we didn't have this document. And I remember speaking and asking of the council, create something that's aspirational. Create something that says what we want to be. It's not enough to just wag a finger and say, don't do this, don't do this. This is a document that says what we believe in, what matters to us as a government. And it's a good document. Is it perfect? Can it be improved? Sure. But it sets the right tone, and it sets the start for you. And it says we want good public officials. And so, to the extent you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them tonight, or certainly you can through my office, and I would welcome that opportunity.
Great, thank you, Attorney Murphy. Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. I do have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
And it's related to both FOIA and the Code of Ethics, at least in my opinion. And I've sought legal counsel from you in the past on this, and I've consistently followed this advice. But since we have new members, I just kind of want to reconfirm that advice. And so it probably doesn't apply so much to the school board, but council certainly, where often we'll have an application or a request for, say, a contract zone or a zoning change or anything else. But clearly there's an applicant that's seeking something from the elected body. Oftentimes we'll have communications that will say, hey, Councilor so-and-so, would you like to come to my establishment and view it? And so in the past, I've always very politely said, you know, it's not appropriate for a single councilor or a collective body to meet with you because whatever you're seeking should be done in view of the public. Yep. Would you reconfirm that that's solid advice?
Absolutely. So any person who's coming and you're going to make a decision that is a yes or no, that provides them some benefit, some opportunity, or denies them some benefit or opportunity. they have an expectation that you're going to be a fair, neutral body, unbiased. And the problem with preparatory communications prior to a meeting is it might lead a party to believe there was bias, there was a predetermination, without all the facts being heard. So the idea is that the facts and decisions are all gathered in the context of a meeting that's open to the public so that the interested party knows what's being said, can be there, can add information if needed, can rebut something if it's wrong. So yeah, that's the basis for it.
Yeah, well, like I said, I've consistently followed that, and I just, it comes up quite frequently, and so just with new counselors, I think it's important to reiterate that. I've never viewed it as something nefarious. It's just, hey, it would be easier if we met up and had more of a dialogue. But, you know, as I've always said, well, the public, neighbors, abutters equally should, you know, have that same opportunity, and they're not,
Right.
or they haven't been afforded it.
And that's
so
the basis.
we do it
Yeah.
inside council chambers. Thank you.
Councilor Berman?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Solicitor Murphy and Councilor Johnston for the interesting discussion and question. It indeed does come up quite frequently. And in an area that I have trouble, your advice is sound and clear. And of course, ethics and city code guide us to making decisions as a body and seeing evidence as a body and assessing evidence as a body. Where there's some gray area in my mind that I hope you could speak to is the distinction between constituent services, where it's quite common for somebody to reach out to a counselor. I'm trying to do this thing. How do I do it? How does it work? What information do I need? What's the process like? Versus, you know, a specific case that's in front of us and where it changes from constituent services and good governance and offering clarity to something that would be inappropriately receiving evidence, testimony, hearing, and facts about a particular case.
So you're probably going to get questions all the time. How do I go about getting a liquor permit? You're not voting, you're not telling them they can get a liquor permit, but you can say, and you should, because it's good service, say, you know, those start with the clerk. Call, and here's the clerk's phone number, feel free to call her. And give them a little background on how it works. But you can't comment to them on the propriety or merits of their application. But can you assist them? Yes. Another easy solution is say, you know, that question is best addressed by the city administrator. Or the city, and they'll direct to the right department head. But we could tonight work and hone and get to that point where what's just good constituent service to the point where maybe it's an application pending about something. And you're right, that clearly if they're going to come before you on something that requires a vote, that's when those hairs on the back of your neck are going to go up.
I would just add from my own personal experience there, as Solicitor Murphy has indicated, for me, I've always assisted constituents or guided them, but the moment they have filed an application or it's before council or going to be on an agenda, I've always indicated I can't hear this anymore. Because you're right, we often get requests from constituents or just kind of feeling out a process. You don't want to just shut them down, but if it is going to be before a councilor or they've started that process, I have always just said, okay, it's time for me to remove myself, just so I'm fully unbiased.
Good advice, thank you. Any other members of the council or school board have any questions or comments? Councilor Hewitt?
A question. We often receive emails to the whole council from constituents that have a concern or a complaint. How is the best way as a councilor to respond or not respond, given the FOA?
Yeah, because you're almost inviting the other counselors to reply. As soon as you get a couple counselors involved, it's essentially a meeting. Again, it's best to, and citizens are certainly free to email all of you and say, I'm concerned about taxes, or I'm concerned about where we're going to put the new school. Those are, we want citizens, we want them calling us or emailing us about those things. So it's a good thing, but when you go beyond, thank you for your inquiry, I've made note of it, we'll be taking up the matter the night of the 17th. When you go beyond that, now you're starting to, when you start talking about your personal opinion or how you view something, you're betraying a position, and you don't want to do that to the extent possible. If it's something that's going to require a vote, but you can have certainly you're entitled, you're elected officials, so you're entitled to have positions on taxes. Don't feel you can't talk about taxes. We all hate them.
Would we be allowed to respond to them directly, email them if they were in our ward, or meet with them to find out more about their concerns, or is that not permitted?
It's certainly, it's your discretion, but again, as you take more action, it gets riskier. Email responses are good because they're written. You can confirm, this is what I said, and I didn't go beyond this. No one else is going to be at that meeting. So I'll give you an example of the danger of meetings. I had a zoning case in Berwick where I represented 8 or 9 abutters to a metal shredding facility. Very loud, very noisy, and they were opposed to it. They were opposed to the expansion of this facility. The planning board chair scheduled a site walk. A couple of the members couldn't be there. So on their own, they reached out to the facility and said, hey, we couldn't make the meeting the other night. Would you mind if we come by Tuesday at 10 in the morning? Oh, of course, the facility said, sure, great, come on by. We're just going to give them a tour. Secret meeting. Because 2 members of the planning board met on site with an applicant on a project they were going to vote on. No one knows what was talked about. We didn't even know the meeting happened. We found out about it by accident. So, of course, that's an immediate legal challenge, and it was immediately kicked back. So when you have meetings with a citizen, no problem. You're their elected official. But if they're an applicant, if they're going to come before you on a vote, now you've got to be real. That's when radar antenna goes up. And to the extent you have questions or doubts, again, talk with the mayor, talk to other members of the council and say, how would you handle this? Again, now I'll point to Councilor Hatch again because I've known him so. Here's a senior government official who's been around a long time. Nate as well. You the longest serving?
Yes.
Okay, Phil, forget Phil. 2 year left. That might be a good resource. But no. And I don't mean to be flip. But to the extent someone's an applicant, that's a danger sign.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So just to elaborate on that a little bit more, so in your question specifically, if we get an email to council from a constituent asking question, concern, whatever, if you reply, you're replying directly to that constituent, and you're CCing council, so that way we know you replied. That is okay because you are not addressing council, you are addressing the constituent. If you have a piece of information to provide council, Councilor Hatch is very popular with this. He, for informational purposes only. You're not asking for discussion. You're not asking, this goes for school board as well, if you are answering questions to your constituents or to other school board members. Just note on it, not, for informational purposes only, not for discussion. This is just, I'm giving you a fact, I don't want anybody to discuss it. Then when you're inviting discussion, that's when it becomes the meeting aspect. Is that correct?
Yes.
So those are 2 safe ways that, and again, we all get those emails and we question, oh, who's answering it? Has anybody answered it? Should I answer it? So yes, you can always check with the ward counselor, or again, you can fairly respond, but you're responding to the constituent directly.
Counselor, the fact that you have that very question is great, because it means you're sensitive to these issues, and you're trying to stay, within the bounds of what we're allowed. And are we going to make mistakes now and then? Yeah, don't lose sleep about that. But we're trying to act in good faith, and so this is just setting some guidelines for you. And if we make a mistake, it's okay. Most of the times it won't matter, or we can get it corrected. So.
Okay, anyone else? Councilor Gunn?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Solicitor Murphy, I'm going to take advantage of you being in front of us and everyone at the moment, because I've always had this question, and I've always told people that when you become a city councilor or a school board member, you voluntarily sort of curb your freedom of speech because you are no longer speaking solely for yourself. I always say, I remember my MMA training, you're carrying the council, you're carrying the school board with you at all times. So when it comes to good conduct and obviously not wanting to be biased in any way, or at least appearing to be biased in any way, because we're all human beings, I certainly support that standard. I figured I would ask you while you're here for your professional opinion when it comes to our limitation. Notice that we don't try to say prohibition because that would be illegal, but limitations on political activities. It's a very vague term. Political activities could cover a wide variety of things from candidates to office to political causes to just position on anything. And we are certainly, while we are all nonpartisan, politics is a natural part of how we collectively make decisions. It's not a dirty word. It's actually how we collectively make policy. So in that vein, I would ask for your 2 cents in terms of how we approach that practically, especially for our new members who are not certainly used to balancing their personal beliefs versus the beliefs that possible to run the city effectively.
The fear has been that the person would use their office to pressure someone into supporting a candidate, donating to a candidate, to a political cause. And so that's the concern. We had a former mayor who was at one time going to local businesses, and strong-arming is maybe more than it was, but certainly making a diligent effort to persuade some businesses to give money to a particular cause. Just not what you want, because you're using the strength of the office to attempt to persuade or induce someone to do something they don't otherwise want to do. And that's the fear. And once upon a time, and I don't remember when Saco made the switch, we had partisan office. And so we switched to nonpartisan because it was believed that this would allow for fairer, freer government. So there are wise policies behind the restriction on political activity. And I could refer you to those, but they're fairly common. We're not new in this. We're not the outlier at all. It's a concern, and that fundamentally it falls into an abuse of power kind of category that you wouldn't personally. I know you wouldn't. None of the people here, but the rules aren't designed for all of you sitting here today. They're designed for that once-in-a-lifetime mythical character who comes down an escalator and says they want to be the president of the United States. Well, who knows? So it is...
hypothetically speaking, of course.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
Because you just
Want
never...
to make sure you're covered.
You just never know who's going to take office. And so you don't want them using the office to enforce their politics or their views and induce people. So, you could be doing it to the employees here. You could say, oh, you enjoy being, planning person, or you like being in the tax assessing office? Well, I really would like you to donate to this such and such party. And I mean, what's not unheard of in the day? I had an employer once say to me, you're on the Red Sox, you're going to play like one of the Red Sox. And it was expected that I was going to give money to a particular charity that this partner supported. And it was serious arm twisting. I mean, I was a young associate, and here's a partner telling me, this is what you're going to do. And so it falls in that category. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we are going to move on, and I am going to ask the council if we can have a motion to suspend the rules and order of business to move the executive session up with the school board for the essence of time and so that they can go home and enjoy their evening.
So
Is there a
moved.
motion?
Second.
Motion by Counselor Hatch, second by Counselor Johnston. Any discussion on the, okay, great. Welcoming Counselor Edwards, we are going to reverse the roll call votes this evening. So we will start with Counselor Johnston,
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt,
Yes.
Counselor Hatch,
Yes.
Counselor Berman,
Yes.
Counselor Gunn,
Yes.
Counselor Parks,
Yes.
and Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Is there a motion to move into executive session? Counselor Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor McPhail. Be it ordered that the City Council enter into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Chapter 13, Subchapter 1, Section 4056C, Real Estate.
Motion made by Counselor Hatch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Berman. Roll call vote. Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
And Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. To enter executive session at 7:38. We will be downstairs in the conference room. Thank you and welcome back, everybody. Is there a motion to exit executive session?
So moved.
Motion made by Counselor Berman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Parks. Roll call vote. Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
And Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Motion to exit executive session passes 7-0. And is there a report?
No report.
Thank you. Okay, so that now takes us to item D of the agenda, and that is the election of the deputy mayor. And that is assigned to Counselor Johnston.
Thank you. City Council shall elect from its membership a deputy mayor who shall exercise all powers of the mayor during temporary absence or disability of the mayor. In the event of a vacancy in the office of the mayor, the deputy mayor shall assume the office of mayor with all the duties and obligations of that office in accordance with the provisions of Section 2.06C1. I would just say at this point that after some consultation with the mayor and Councilor Hatch, I would like to consider us doing this in a different process, one which we used years ago, which instead of having a motion prepared, we used to take nominations, written down, secret ballot, and then a motion came forth from that. So I would ask that we table this for this week and take it up in that form next week.
A motion has been made by Counselor Johnston to table. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Counselor Hatch. Roll call vote. Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
And Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Motion to table passes 7-0. Excuse me. Okay, that now takes us to item E, and that is the confirmation of council liaison appointments to the committees, and that is Counselor Johnston.
It is the practice of the City Council to have council members serve as a liaison with city boards, committees, and commissions. By code, some committees and boards include voting rights. The mayor has made updates to the individuals appointed to these bodies and is seeking council confirmation. The city solicitor has vetted this process of changing appointments. Be it aware that the City Council approved the mayor's appointments as detailed in the document titled Saco City Councilor Liaison and Appointments to Committees, December 2nd, 2024.
Motion has been made by Counselor Johnston. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Hewitt. Any discussion on the appointments? Okay. Counselor Berman, then Counselor Hatch. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I apologize for not bringing this up earlier. I am pleased with my committee appointments. I love all of my committees, but I would also note that newly elected Councilor Edwards was the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee chairperson for a long time and also has very strong affiliations with that committee. And if it pleased you and Councilor Edwards, I'd be willing to relinquish my seat on that committee in deference to his long-term service on that committee if he so wished.
Counselor Edwards, would you like to accept that?
I'll accept that from my
You'll
colleague.
accept that?
Yes.
Okay, Counselor Berman, would you like to make an official amendment?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move to amend the committee, the City Council liaison appointments to strike Parks and Rec Advisory Committee from my list and add it to Councilor Edwards' list.
Second.
Motion has been made by Counselor Berman, second by Counselor Johnston. Was that? Okay, roll call vote. Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Counselor Hewitt?
Yes.
Counselor Hatch?
Yes.
Counselor Berman?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Parks?
Yes.
Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Okay. Motion on the amendment passes 7-0.
Wait, he's not taking anything?
He's adding to your load.
Counselor Hatch, did you have something to add?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McPhail. Again, I'm like Councilor Berman, I'm very pleased with my committee liaison appointments. However, I'm looking at this, and I didn't catch this earlier, so forgive me. It looks like you've got an appointment for me with the Energy Committee, as you do Councilor Hewitt, and I believe we have, at least historically, have only had one council liaison, if I'm reading this correctly. yeah.
Check that. I could have been a copy paste.
That's all right, we'll forgive you. So I'm happy to relinquish the Energy Committee a liaison assignment to Councilor Hewitt, only because I've served on that for multiple years, and I think it would probably be good to have a new face assigned to that particular committee. So whatever you wish is fine with me.
I would just add that historically, there has been two.
Oh, really? Okay, I was not
They
aware of that.
may not have always attended, but there's always been.
I
Okay.
thought it was always two, yeah.
Okay, my
When I
mistake.
first started on it, because I was originally with
Yeah.
Councilor Johnston.
I've been the only one attending, so that's how I thought that was the case. So, well, my mistake, sorry.
But let me just double check here, just to make sure.
Do you want to be on it? They meet early in the morning. 8:30?
Yep, we do have the two assigned. Okay, anyone else? Okay, back to the main motion. Roll call vote, Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
And Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, next item is item F, and that is the adoption of the rules and orders of business.
I believe it's me.
That is Councilor Johnston as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Pursuant to Article 2, Section 2.08B of the City Charter, the council is required to develop its own rules and order of business at the first meeting of newly elected council each year. Again, after consultation with a fellow councilor and comments from the public, I would say that I do have minor updates, but after reviewing this document this afternoon, it occurred to me that what's provided in the packet is not what we adopted in March of last year. So I would just add that we also have a new member of council who probably hasn't had a great amount of time to review this. So I would just, again, suggest table this until next week so we can have more opportunity to review it.
Okay, there is a motion to table. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Councilor Hatch. Roll call vote, Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
And Councilor Edwards?
Yes.
Motion to table passes 7-0. Okay, that completes the action items this evening. Item number 9 is an administrative update. City Administrator Bahanko?
All I have is information that the lawsuit of 321 Lincoln has been dismissed. And so that, as of right now, ends that chapter.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Okay, moving on to item 10, that is council discussion and comment. Any councilors wishing to speak? Okay, not seeing anyone. Okay, that takes us to item 13, and that is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second?
Motion by Councilor Berman, second by Councilor Hatch. Roll call vote, Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Councilor Hewitt?
Yes.
Councilor Hatch?
Yes.
Councilor Berman?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Parks?
Yes.
And Councilor Edwards?
No.
You are following in previous Councilor Archer's footsteps. Motion to adjourn passes 6-1 at 8:48. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.